Mr. President, the United States invaded Iraq following congressional authorization exactly 20 years ago, March 19 and 20, 2003. And in that war, nearly 4,500 Americans lost their lives. And more than 31,000 American troops were wounded, some grievously, who will carry that wound for the rest of their lives. Hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians were killed. I rise thinking about all of them as we come close to a vote to declare that these wars are over. It wasn't too long into the war when criticism of the decision to go to war began. There's no criticism of the heroism of the American troops who served ably, who did so well, who protected their colleagues, who protected civilian life the best they could. But there began to be criticism of the rationale for the war. Two of the rationales for this war were that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. That was very convincing to many colleagues here. It turned out not to be true. And another of the rationales that was occasionally advanced was that Iraq had participated in the 9/11 attack. That proved not to be true. And so much of the analysis of the Iraq War looking backward over 20 years and lessons learned has focused upon the rationales advanced that turned out not to be true. But there was another challenge, and today is an effort in many ways to try to fix that challenge. And the challenge was this: we rushed into it. There were 4,500 who died, the 31,000 who were wounded, the hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians. What we have to contemplate is the reality that we rushed into a war. This body rushed into a war. The Iraq War resolution was filed in the House in early October 2002, assigned to a committee, and came out of the House in a week. The resolution was pending in the Senate, no committee action, no committee opportunity for inquiry, amendment, debate. It was pending in the Senate for 3 days. 3 days. The Senate voted to go to war, a war that has had massive consequences, with a total of 3 days of analysis. Taking the time to be the greatest deliberative body in the world does not guarantee that we will get everything right. But short-circuiting a decision, especially a decision of such magnitude as whether the United States should go to war, maximizes the chance that we as fallible humans will get it wrong. And I believe many of the challenges that we faced in the Iraq War began with that rush. And I am very dedicated to the proposition, and I have been since I came here, that the United States and the Article I branch of Congress, we should never be pushed into a war, and we should never be rushed into a war. The repeal of the 91 and 02 AUMFs has been on the floor of the Senate for 2 weeks, not 3 days. The repeal has been pending before the body since 2019. It has had 2 different markups in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, where members got chances to offer amendment and debate and vote twice. The effort over the last 13 days has involved 11 votes on amendments in this body. The declaration of war, there were only 5 amendment votes. We have given dramatically more time in this body to the question of whether we end 2 wars, one declared in 1991 and one declared in 2002, than was given to the momentous question of whether we should start a war. And I think that is a lesson that we should all absorb and learn from. I want to thank my colleagues who have been so helpful in this regard. Senator Young has been such an able colleague in this path from the very day he came to this body and was assigned to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. His bona fides, having worked with a great member of the Senate, Senator Lugar, his Marine service made him somebody who grabbed this issue immediately. I want to thank the Senate Foreign Relations Committee leadership, Senators Menendez and Risch, both of whom have cooperated to try to give this the attention and deliberation it deserves. I will say about Senator Risch, we've had disagreements along the way, but here's a man who knows how to disagree without being disagreeable. Curmudgeonly, yes, but not disagreeable. I also want to thank Senator Schumer for being committed to make this happen. Also to Senator Warner for his pep talks when I would get down about, how come I'm not able to convince anybody? He would give me pep talks, and I appreciated his comments. I appreciate the outside groups who have weighed in significant ways. American Legion, Concerned Veterans for America, the Friends National Committee on Legislation, so many others. And I very much want to thank my staff, many of whom are here, who have worked with me on this and probably, like Senator Warner, at some points wondered why I was so obsessed about it and can't we move on and do something else. But I learned early that I'm not going to get my way by looks, so I just better get it by persistence. And this has been one of those efforts where persistence has helped. And the passage of 20 years and even the anniversary, the 20th anniversary, has kind of opened a reflective moment where I think we're moving in the right direction. Last thing I want to say is this. This is obviously very important to me personally on this topic, coming from a state that is so military in our focus, and proudly so. Being the father of a Marine, that makes a difference to me. But even if this debate were about another topic, I am so glad that we've just spent time deliberating, for gosh sake. Instead of rushing to a war in 3 days, we've had a very robust process of full committee consideration, of full Senate floor debate, of amendments, some that were easy and some that were really hard, some that were really close and some that weren't so close. We showed that we can operate in what I had never really experienced in the time I've been here, but what I've had glimpses of in this debate. We can operate according to sort of a regular order, the way we should do things. And regular order is kind of a phrase. Who knows what that means? It means deliberation. When we're making important decisions, allowing the committees to take their time to do the work, allowing committee members to shape a bill, getting a bill on the floor, giving it the time it deserves. That's what the Senate has been known for since 1787. We've declined in our ability, or perhaps our willingness, to do it the old-fashioned way. But when we do it the old-fashioned way and we deliberate, we make better decisions. And I'm proud to have been part of a decision-making process that has enabled all 100 senators to participate in a meaningful way. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.